Good morning, everyone. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar aligned to hyper-intelligent automation. And I sure hope that we're able to do this in person next time around. As Anudeep was mentioning, automation has truly come of age and become a top-of-the-mind recall for CXOs across the enterprises. In fact, we recently conducted a comprehensive global survey of more than 257 CXO leaders from across industries. And interestingly, we found that more than 65% of the CXOs call intelligent automation as the number one priority within their digital transformation charters, right? And this was further accelerated during the COVID times with more than 70% CXOs increasing their investments in automation. And this was, of course, done in order to ensure business continuity and business resiliency for the enterprises. Now, this is how we define automation, right? What we have realized is that automation has moved beyond being a silo technology focus. So it's not about silo technology such as RPA only anymore, but it involves a focus on confluence of technologies, right? So it's multiple technologies coming together. There are three layers of technologies that we can see here. The first one is around automation technologies. And we can see that there are different building blocks to automation technologies, such as process mapping and intelligence. This includes technology areas like process mining, task mining, process mapping and understanding, and IBPMS. The other building block is more around data-led transformation, which includes your intelligent document processing or IDP, which is essentially to convert your unstructured data into a structured format and so on. And the final and probably the most critical building block is also around the workflow process and task automation, which includes the likes of RPA, low code, no code, API integration, and so on. Now, this first layer of automation technology is essentially bolstered by the second layer, which is your intelligence technologies. This includes your technology areas like computer vision, NLP, NLG, conversational AI, and so on. And these two layers are further built on top of the next-gen infrastructure layer, which is the third layer, as we can see here. So this end-to-end holistic focus is what we are defining as hyper-intelligent automation, or HI. Consequently, what we see is that the total addressable market, or TAM, is massive at more than $265 billion. And if you look at the actual enterprise spend, we're only at the tip of the iceberg. So only about $15 billion have been spent by enterprises today, though this is increasing at more than 50% CAGR growth. And we also wanted to provide a quick look into where this enterprise spend is happening. So if you look at the horizontal functions here, we see the usual suspects of finance and accounting, or F&A, and HR emerging as the top two focus areas for the enterprise spend. And in fact, if we go deeper into F&A, where we see most of the enterprises starting their automation journey, this is a detailed value chain view where we see the different use cases or processes within a typical F&A value chain. And we can see that there are multiple use cases even within some of these processes. So this is almost like a heat map, and you can see the dark blues are the use cases which have a very high automation propensity. Out of all the use cases, what we see is that the two that we see around procure to pay, or P2P, and order to cash, or O2C, are the top two most popular F&A use cases that enterprises are adopting. And in fact, if you look at one of these use cases, let's take accounts payable or AP automation within the P2P as an example. This is just to highlight the process complexities that are there. So this is a typical accounts payable solution map. So an enterprise, when they want to embark on their automation journey, this is the level of detailing that is required. So accounts payable, for instance, has more than 25 sub-steps involved. And as we can see on this process map, we have highlighted the specific steps and the decision points, and also looked at the different HI or automation technologies, such as, say, RP or IDP, which can actually help remove some of the inefficiencies in the process. So this is the level of complexity and detailing which is required in some of the use cases that we've seen. And we're also tracking the leading Fortune 250 enterprises across the globe. And this is a quick snapshot of the maturity map. While at an overall high level, we see that almost 90% of the F250 enterprises have invested into automation. The more interesting point here, as we all can see, is that the enterprises are spread across, right? Only around 10 to 15% out of the Fortune 250 have reached the high maturity or the level 3 stage on the top right, as we can see. And the major concentration is around the low to medium maturity as of now, right? So this truly shows that the enterprises, while they've all started on their automation journeys, but they are still maturing in their uh, it, maturing in their automation maturity, across the maturity map here. And while up till now, I think this was just to provide you a glimpse on the global landscape. Now we'll zoom into the India GCC landscape, and we conducted a survey recently with the India GCCs across the technology focus areas, and clearly, as we can see, automation or hyper intelligent automation has emerged as the top technology focus even within the India GCC ecosystem. And consequently, what we see is that out of the total 1,500 plus GCCs that we are tracking today, more than 550 have already invested into automation, right? And we spoke about the concept of hyper intelligent automation or HI earlier. And at the bottom, you can see that even the GCCs are today going beyond RPA and investing into multiple areas such as low code, no code, such as IDP, API, and so on, right? And interestingly, you see some key statistics on the automation focus here on the slide. More than 30% of the GCCs have also invested into automation specific COEs, for example, or centers of excellences. And we also see a lot of the GCCs investing into automation specific talent in-house. While we see this massive uptake and all these impressive numbers on adoption, at the same time, what we've also realized is that the GCCs are mired by several challenges across their automation journeys, right? And this is a list of the top 6 challenges that we came across, and you also see the impact rating here. And interestingly, the number one challenge that was highlighted by a sizable amount of GCCs was around the process discovery, right? So how do you really identify and prioritize the right use case from a automation perspective? And this is especially relevant if you look at an enterprise who have already started their automation journeys. They typically are well adept to identify the low-hanging fruits. And once they automate that, it's the next set of use cases where they struggle and they're unable to scale their automation deployments, right? So this step around process discovery becomes a very critical step for any enterprise or any GCC in this construct. So what we'll do is we'll probe deeper into this whole process discovery phenomena in the next few slides. Broadly, there are 2 approaches that we come across when we talk about process discovery. The first approach is more manual crowdsourcing based techniques. This includes multiple areas such as recommendations from the business units or the business owners, which forms a key part to it. There are, of course, dedicated process teams which are set up in order to find and hunt for these use cases in tandem with the business units. There are also other methods such as conducting workshops, conducting hackathons, botathons, and so on in order to crowdsource ideas. And we also have a lot of enterprises or GCCs leveraging ideation tools in order to identify the next best use case for an automation perspective. So all of these put together, these are very manual techniques and almost crowdsourcing based techniques, which have been in vogue since a very long time, right? So this forms the first bucket of the approach towards process discovery. The second key approach, which is gained prominence over the last couple of years, is more around following a more tools-based and a scientific technique. This involves leveraging techniques such as process mining, task mining, and process mapping in order to identify use cases at scale. Process mining, just for reference, is analysis of the event logs of enterprise applications like, say, your ERP systems, HCM systems, and so on, in order to identify the processes at a high level which are running inefficiently or suboptimally in an enterprise. Task mining is another technique which actually looks towards analyzing the user clicks and user screens and so on in order to really gauge how a user is completing a use case today, right? So this helps identify those processes or the sub-use cases which are being run suboptimally, and hence you can identify those pipeline of use cases from an automation perspective. So these techniques of process mining and task mining are more automated techniques, and these help identify use cases at scale. What we'll do next is we'll go deeper into each of these 2 techniques. First up, I think we'll probe into some of the key case studies around the manual crowdsourcing approach. We have a bunch of case studies here, as we can see, around MetLife and Ford, and how the GCCs have really been able to drive, manual crowdsourcing techniques such as setting up process teams, which MetLife had done, and even with Ford, doing a lot of these crowdsourcing workshops in order to drive use cases. But what I wanted to do was, we have with us our in-house expert Mohan Das on the call as well. So I would actually invite Mohan. So Mohan has more than 30 years of experience. He's an industry practitioner, brings in a lot of experience from the VFS domain as well. And it'll be good to understand, Mohan, if you can chime in and spend a few minutes talking to the audience about how, in one of your earlier avatars within a key financial services enterprise, how you guys went about identifying use cases and opportunities for automation, and some of the subsequent benefits and disadvantages therein. So over to you, Mohan.
Thank you, Nischay. Hope you all can hear me well. Nischay can, yeah.
Yes, okay. We can. Go ahead.
So I'll cover my points in 3 points. The first one is how the automation journey started in this US Fortune 500 FS enterprise, and what were the issues, how it was addressed, and still there are room for improvement. That will be my third point. Right? The first point is, as in most of the firms' practices, 5 years back, RPA tools, one of the top 3 RPA tool was chosen. And we were like taking a hammer and looking for a nail, right? Trying to find out fit to that RPA tool to different processes. Quite candidly, we had initial interest internally in the organization, but subsequently they felt, right, we are trying to push internally as salespeople, though we are running an automation COE. Few processes were automated, some benefits were accrued, but none of the core processes got automated. Then about a year later, we changed track. And that's the second point. What did we do? Is we created a thin consulting layer on top, and we did a process study. So we said, hey, let's put the business first. The business might have goals like customer experience, cost reduction, risk reduction, and so on. And then use that business objective as an anchor and understand the process by spending maybe 2-3 days with each of the process owners and understand the process in detail. And then come back and synthesize that process, because when we hear a lot of information, we don't know where to start. So you got to synthesize that information and play back to the process owners. This is the possible solution. The learning which came is put business first, process second, technique third, and tool the last. Tool, I mean, not the process discovery tool, but the tool to automate, whether it's RPA, IDP, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on. And once we adopted that approach, and there was a tremendous buy-in in the organization across the world, right? We could automate a lot more processes. We understood a lot more processes. We understood what we are trying to accomplish. The ROI has been exceptional. And that brings me to the third point. We can skip to the next slide. The third point is, even though it was successful, it was not scalable, because the approach we had taken at that time was, is that for any process study, rhetorically, we said we need a Google and a General Electric in the room. A General Electric person will ensure that he or she understands the process, Six Sigma methods, and so on, while the Google guy would be able to understand the algorithmic approach to solve the problem. So as one would say, that if you want to optimize a taxi operation, taxi call center operations, a GE guy will get it right 6 days out of the 7 days, but you will miss the Uber moment without the Google guy in the room. And again, GE and Google are used more like rhetorical examples rather than convey literal sense. But since this process is a very manual process, the number of processes which was selected, A, it's unscientific, B, it's laborious. And therefore, if the same thing has to be played out again in the year 2020 or 2021, definitely we would have taken a hybrid approach. There is certainly a need for expertise, but the process mining tools and process discovery tools will give you that acceleration. So the combination of process discovery tool and expert interview and expert analysis, at least there are 5 times more processes potentially one could have automated than what we could do. That is my learning in those 3 points, and I will turn it back to Nischay.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, Mohan. Thanks for your insights. And just building on top of what Mohan has alluded to, we also conducted a recent survey within the GCC ecosystem, right? And this survey was specifically focusing on the process discovery techniques. And these are the 2 techniques that we sort of flagged off, right, in the survey. And these are the results which came out. So though an increasing number of the GCCs continue to rely on these crowdsourcing manual methodologies, more than 85 to 90%, as we can see, the interesting point that came out is a large number, right? Almost around 20% are also now experimenting with tools-based methodologies, right? So, and we see the overlap here in the Venn diagram. These are the folks who are doing the hybrid approach, as Mohan also alluded to earlier, right? So there is this advent towards, moving towards a more scientific or tools-based approach in order to identify use cases at scale. Though a large number of these tools-based methodologies remain in a POC or experimental stage, but what we foresee is that over the next 12 to 24 months, tools-based methodologies, including process mining and task mining, will have a widespread adoption even within the India GCC ecosystem. And just building on top of this hybrid process discovery, we had another case study here on AIG, looking at what the India GCC have done. So a few years back, of course, when they started off with their automation journey, they started off with a very manual crowdsourcing-based technique. So they had a team of process consultants who used to work in tandem with the business owners, and then identify the use cases which were best fit from an automation perspective. However, they started facing a lot of these challenges, which Mona earlier also alluded to. Challenges around how do you build a scaled sort of pipeline of use cases, right? How do you ensure that you're not getting stuck at the initial set of use cases? How do you become more scientific in your use case discovery? And how do you try and eliminate the human bias and errors which creep in, right? So that's where they started augmenting their manual process with a lot of tools-based analysis as well. So they onboarded a tool vendor, Fluxicon, and they were able to augment the current manual method with a lot of the automated methodology provided by this tool. And they realized immense benefits, right? They were able to trim down their time of discovery of use cases by more than 30 to 40%. And they were able to identify 3x, 4x more use cases as compared to the earlier manual crowdsourcing based techniques. So this is just a case in point. There are a lot of other similar case studies where the earlier manual methods were augmented with tools-based approach to really derive the best of both worlds and in order to identify processes at scale. Similar to the earlier technique, we also have a similar benefit and challenges slide here. Most of the benefits here, as you would realize, are sort of taking care or alleviating the challenges of the earlier approach. So Mohan spoke about how the manual crowdsourcing techniques are not scalable, and that's one of the key benefits that the tools-based methodology provides. It's also extremely time effective, as the time taken to build a healthy pipeline of use cases gets reduced many folds. And it also removes the human bias and influence, right? However, interestingly, even this tools-based approach also comes with its own sets of challenges. One of the key challenge being that enterprises or GCCs feel that it's expensive, especially as compared to the earlier crowdsourcing techniques. There are, of course, also a lot of security or privacy-related concerns. If you look at someone like a task mining tool, it's sitting on employee laptops and desktops, and that's where some of the concerns creep in from. And some of the tools we've also realized can be biased depending on the tool capabilities themselves, right? In order to, if the tool does not have capability for a certain industry or a use case, then those use cases popping up as part of the automation and automated analysis may get hampered, right? So these are some set of challenges. Hence, this whole approach towards a hybrid process discovery is what works the best. This is just a quick snapshot on the different tool vendors and platforms out there aligned to process discovery. So as we can see, this is our Zinnov Zones initiative that we run on an annual basis. And we can see a mix of players here, right? So we have, some of the big three players like UiPath and Automation Anywhere who have either acquired capabilities. For example, UiPath having acquired, process code kind of players for process mining, and others like Automation Anywhere who have built this in-house over the last, several years. And you also see a good mix of specialist players like, someone like a Celonis, someone like MindMinio, Fortress IQ, who are specialist players providing either process mining or task mining capabilities. Interestingly, we also see a lot of vendors, and this was conducted back in the Q1, Q2 of this year. So a lot of these vendors like Mind, Minio, and Signavi, Olana Labs have also gotten acquired over the last several months, right? So this clearly shows that even the leading tool vendors, they're betting big on process discovery tools as a capability. And in fact, we were in an event last week, and the CXOs of two of the leading platforms, they put 2022 as the year where the process discovery tools, including process mining and task mining, will come of age, and there'll be a widespread adoption by the enterprises and GCCs. So this was just a snapshot to give you a glimpse on the platform capabilities around process discovery. And we just wanted to leave you with our approach or our theory around this whole process discovery debacle, right? So as we discussed, there are two approaches, right? And each of the two approaches of manual crowdsourcing and scientific or tool-based, they come with their own sets of challenges. Now, what we propose is this hybrid process discovery that even Mohan was earlier alluding to. So this combines the best of both worlds. So you can leverage the business owners and process owner inclusion, which is a key highlight of the manual crowdsourcing-based techniques. At the same time, you can augment that with tools-based techniques such as process mining and task mining, and reap the benefits of scalability and time effectiveness from that. And this is, these are the key tenets of the hybrid process discovery. And we can see some of the benefits that we have written at the bottom here. And finally, just wanted to leave you with, the offering that we have around hybrid process discovery. So there are these three prongs to the approach, which essentially starts with a series of workshops with some of the key business owners and process owners, and we have our own in-house proprietary toolkits for the same. We augment this initial shortlist of use cases with process mining or task mining tools, and this is how we derive the second set of shortlisted or prioritized use cases. And then finally, there is a roadmap that we help with, including the technology and tool vendor selection. So you can reach out to us. In fact, we'll be happy to provide more details, but this was just a snapshot for your reference. So this is essentially what I had. Hope you found it useful, and I'll hand it back to you, Anu, now. Back to you for the next few sessions.